folks. We're back with Hobby Talk with PSA Canada May 11th, 2023. Two out of the three of us are on location. I'm going to say it's them. So we got Brad and Luke both in Montreal, hanging out at the Montreal. I want to make sure I get the verbiage right. We've got it here. I want to make sure the Sports Hobby Expo. The Sports Hobby Expo, which is part of the PSA Canada calendar that was at the end of the little graphic there. So we've got that going on. And both guys were also at the Edmonton Sports Card Expo as well last week. So that's kind of why we weren't able to get the timing together for that one. But we got those two ones. So first, let me start off. Luke, how are you doing this evening?
I'm good. Yourself, Carlos?
I'm doing well. I'm enjoying. Today was like the first nice day, like really nice day in a while. So I actually I go out, do some errands, walk around. I was like, hey, this is pretty good. Not bad. So it's feeling a little more summerish today. Today was the first real summerish kind of feeling day in a while. So it's pretty good. Mr. Brad, how are you this evening?
Oh, doing great. Yeah, doing great. Same. Things are just rolling along. So it's nice to get up this morning at 2:15 a.m. Hopped in the van with Len, and we drove straight to Montreal. So that was a nice 12-hour drive, and we got here this afternoon, and things have been rolling along.
You know who would have been perfect for that road trip? I bet Eric would have loved to have ridden in the van with Len. I think they would have had so much to talk about. I'm saving that context for Friday. But the point is, it would have been great. I would. By the way, forget the Golden Show. That's a reality series I can get behind. I need 60 episodes for that
one. Absolutely.
Sounds good. Sorry, Luke. I interrupted you. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say the weather out here is nice too.
Yeah. No, that's good. Look. I'm a warm weather guy. Like I was born in July in Panama. I like warm weather. So it's like a little sunshine, a little warm weather. That works for me. Obviously, in Southern Ontario, then we start getting humidity. Humidity, not so good. But warm weather and sunshine, that part we're into. And a nice cold drink, love it. Fantastic.
It's like 30 something in Edmonton today, Brad.
Yeah.
It was what? 37?
30 something, 32, I think, or 31.
Yeah. So I arrived in Edmonton last week and listened to Luke go on about it's minus 20 every day, all winter. It's terrible. I get off the plane, it's 32 degrees.
Right.
I'm like,
it's Canada. He what he said was true, but that was yesterday. So like that doesn't mean anything for today. The reason why I made the point of mentioning. So first, let me also acknowledge James here. Good evening. Yeah. Good evening, James. I wanted to just say like look, the nature of being Canada. We all know this, but we know this from different vantage points. I'm in the Southern Ontario region, so we've got our section here. Brad is out east, and Luke is out west. But we all get a different variation of the same flavor. It's like, you don't like the weather, just wait. you get a different version of it. Like, it'll be like, oh, it's hot, 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 boom, cold. Ice on the streets, boom, hot. It's like, okay. You got to be prepared for your seasonal clothes are all year round clothes because it could hit at any time. So anyway, so let me touch on a couple of things here. So we'll chat on a couple of pieces tonight, get a little bit caught up because there's a little bit. Yeah, exactly. Wait 10 minutes. Exactly right, James. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. But obviously it's been fun. I've been having a little fun this week. We're going to talk a little bit of the Connor Bedard thing. I mentioned that to the guys a little earlier. They got a little time to percolate on it. We'll come back to that topic. But I want to get caught up on what we missed. Obviously, we didn't have an episode last week. You guys were over in Edmonton. So first, let me ask a question. Let me start with Luke. Luke, what were your impressions? How was the Edmonton Expo for you?
I thought the Edmonton Expo was good. I mean, it is great. It's hard to compare because coming from like Toronto, which is like crazy busy or whatever, and then all of a sudden, Edmonton just kind of seemed much slower, right? But I think a lot of people were happy with the sales that they had there. A lot of the vendors that I talked to and stuff. It's a different crowd of purchasing as well. It wasn't like the higher end cards or the bigger dollar cards and stuff. Is more of the smaller ones, which is I think is typical for an Edmonton show, right? So,
all right. Now, question. There's a reversal here. Last year, we had the Edmonton Expo reversed with the Toronto Expo because we did Edmonton first and then Toronto second. Now, this time around, we flipped the script. We got the Toronto one first and then Edmonton second. Now, I know Bobby, who we know very well, he's always of the impression that it's better to have the Toronto first and Edmonton second if you're going to have it at all this way, especially close proximity. The key is the relative close proximity of the two shows. Do you feel that changed the dynamic at all, Luke?
I don't know if it changes the dynamics because a lot of the guys I noticed well, a lot of the vendors are from Toronto, went to Toronto and then Edmonton as well. So,
Yeah.
but I think, I mean, a lot of the attendees in the Edmonton show really didn't go to Toronto, right? So that makes no difference.
I think the reason why he proposed it, so just to give part of the rationale for it, is that obviously if you're going to cart some expensive stuff, imagine you've got the Edmonton show, and for whatever reason, you talked about how not necessarily high end, but let's say the high end thing sells at the Edmonton show. You're a dealer, you sell the high end thing. Then you go to Toronto and the high end thing is no longer available, but in Toronto you got all these other buyers. In this case, if you had the high end thing and you sold it in Toronto, it's not necessarily a big deal, especially if you're a Western dealer. You go back out west, you sell whatever you sell, whatever your inventory is. It is what it is. You're closer to your local home base, so it gave the Toronto people basically first dibs. That's kind of the angle that Bobby was taking on it. It meant that you had almost a full spread. If a dealer does both, you had the full spread of options in the first show, and then if they bought and sold some stuff, then in the Edmonton one, then you got the second version of the table. That's the only reason why I think he in his mind he likes to have first dibs, and that's pretty normal. That's kind of Bobby's mo, which makes sense. I understand it. So let me get your take, Brad. So Edmonton show, how did you feel about it?
Yes, same kind of as what Luke said. I think for us it's a little different because we're getting a lot of people that are getting used to us being at the shows and they're understanding how to submit. So we never had that crazy lineups. We just had people constantly at the booth and we were taking cards. So I think from card submissions, we don't have the numbers yet because Luke's still processing those in Edmonton. We should have them all out the door within the next week to 10 days. But our numbers are definitely up over last Edmonton show as far as volume goes. But people are coming to the booth and they were a little more prepared. They had their submit sheets done because they did it last time. So I think from that standpoint is good. But overall, the dealers I talked to, everyone seemed positive. They had good sales. Me and Luke walked around. We did some personal buying, which was fun. Some weird off-the-chart things as I usually try to pick up.
Nice.
Just a complete array of mixture of things. So that was fun. But the show itself, we never had no problems. We didn't have any cranky customers. We didn't have any problems from that standpoint, which is always nice. We tried to educate people as much as we could. We had a lot of first-time submitters that we spent time with, and we were able to do that because you didn't have the 40 or 50 people staring at you in line. So we got to engage more with the customers and help them out as much as we could. I went through, one gentleman had a couple hundred cards, and I was able to spend a half hour with him to go through and make sure he submitted the proper cards. And as I preach all the time, that's one of our best services with PSA Canada. One thing we do, if you come to the shows to see us, we're going to do our best to help you out to make sure that you get value by submitting your cards to PSA. So that's fine.
Very nice. I also I want to touch on the personal buying side because that's always kind of a fun little angle because obviously you're working the booth. That's part of the job. It's an important piece of what you're doing. But at the same time, it is nice to be able to see some stuff. So that's kind of a good thing. Now, I'll touch on one thing really quick. You mentioned that this will probably be when the totals come out. It'll probably be a bigger show than the last Edmonton show, which is good. That follows the trend, though. I think you also were suggesting that the Toronto show did better than the last Toronto show, which normally the fall one is a big one. But the fall one was a record show, and then apparently a very strong spring show as well, following, right after that.
Yeah, no, I think we almost have, when I get back this week, we'll have all the submissions done for Toronto and sent and have the final number, but we're definitely up 50%, okay. 50% plus over the last Toronto Expo. And I think we'll probably be similar in Edmonton, really, when we look at the numbers. Yeah, Toronto it was so good, and we had so many submissions. And from our standpoint now, again, we're learning as we go. We anticipated having X amount of cards come through the door and X amount of submissions. So we have myself, Luke, the team, Kevin's doing his thing, Sherry's on it. We have Lloyd now that's working with us. We have the team at AMG Collectibles taking submissions. So we're building this thing up as we go, but I didn't anticipate being up 50%. So it takes us longer to process the orders safely, securely, and do everything that we normally do. So sometimes it does take time. So people are reaching out to us over the last week and looking for their submission numbers, and we told them it would probably be a couple weeks. It's actually going to be closer to 3 to 4 weeks by the time all the orders are done and in Santa Ana. So again, we learn as we go. Some things are beyond our control. We're humans. We have so much time to do it. Again, I emphasize the fact safely and securely. You know, we're not going to rush through orders and have problem orders going to PSA. We want to make sure everything's intact. So.
Right. No, I got you. So, and that'll be kind of an interesting thing to see what that final total comes out to. But it's a good call out, just to note that there is greater than expected success in submissions results in a lot more work, a lot more groundwork in terms of that. And then you're doing another show now, which is obviously going to take its own set of submissions, which is going to be part of the equation as well. Did you want to add anything to that, Luke?
Well, I was just gonna say that, you know, different from last year. Last year, all there were was just the economy service level was the lowest one, right? So I think, you know, also as well, there's a lot more cards going in because of the fact that we have, like, now they have the value bulk or whatever, which also adds in the availability to, you know, submit lower end cards and stuff like that. And I think, you know, in turn that becomes a lot of volume, right? And with the volume, it's, you know, to us, it's not about how much it is, but it's the volume that we have. So a lot more people are submitting it, and it's still the same kind of work, but it's like now we're double or tripling our work, but it's also lower revenue, I guess, in that sense, right? So, yeah.
Right. No, I got you. Now let me share one thing here since we were talking about it. So as far as the Edmonton show is concerned, so I'll share two things here that'll kind of convey one thing. So first of all, as I mentioned, there were, you know, people out and about. Some people were out there making deals. I won't point at anybody in particular, but I'm just saying, you know, there are some influencers out there walking amongst the Edmonton people. Luke, tell us about this deal. We got a Gretzky rookie here. That's what we got going on, as far as I can tell. I'll zoom in a little bit here, but look at this. See this? This is what's going on.
It wasn't really a deal. This kid is actually Ryan's son, or stepson, and he wanted to submit the card. He didn't want it. Wasn't sure how to do it. And I talked to him before the show started, and Ryan's like, "Do you want to go and send it in?" And he's like, "Yep." And I'm like, "Okay." So then we grabbed it, and we wanted a picture of it. So
I just like the fact that it was included in the. It's like it says very clearly first deal of the day. Listen, man, I'm just going with what it says in social media. We know whatever social media says is true. So as far as I'm concerned, this is now canon. It says very clearly first deal of the day. I don't know what to say. And Sports Card Expo sent it over. I'm sorry. Social media, it is done. It doesn't matter what the reality is, Luke. It is done. So it is said, so is written, so it is done. That's it. But I got a kick out of that when I sent it to the guys, and I just laughed. I was like, oh, Luke's making the rounds. I don't know that Luke. I don't know that hashtag influencer. I'm watching this guy. I've been telling people. One other thing I'll share with. Go ahead.
Sorry, but I missed out on a deal. Okay. So I don't know if it was like I wasn't paying attention or something, but some guy was walking around with some Disney boxes, and I was looking all over the show for Disney boxes. And Gloria Creasy, she comes up later on with a whole bunch of ones to submit. I'm like, "Where'd you get these?" And she goes, "Some guy was walking around with these boxes," and I asked him, "What do you do with them?" And the guy says, "I'm trying to sell them." And then so she's like, "Well, I'll buy them all." So I'm like, "I could have bought these boxes. You bought them all."
Well, the problem is you're too busy taking pictures with people signing autographs, Luke. You got to let your fame stop interfering with your buying. Come on, man. All right. I wanted to share this one because this is on the PSA Canada Instagram page. Now, I have a question. So obviously, real quick, so just so everybody can see. So right across the top row, we got a bunch of Ovechkin Young Guns going on. And then we got a whole stack of the incredibly short printed, basically unavailable Connor McDavid Young Gun. Like I said, super short print. Get one while you still can. There might be 3 left in the world. Thereabouts, Brad, somewhere in that vicinity?
Oh, like
my super
God.
Short. Super SSSP, right? So what's can either one of you give me some context for this submission here? What's going on here?
Yeah, so I talked to this gentleman about, I don't know, say 3 or 4 months ago.
Yeah.
Him and his son, he was a super nice guy. And I asked him about, can I share some pictures and tell the story? And he was like, absolutely. I won't mention his name, but so him and his son back in 2015-16, they live in Calgary, but they love the Oilers, and they started opening 15-16 blasters and retail boxes. And they just opened and opened and opened, and they wanted to see how many McDavids they could get. So they got up to about 100. And you can imagine how I didn't do the actual napkin math to figure it out, but you know, you get a one and a half McDavids per blaster case. So to get 100, you're looking at
about 70 and change.
Yeah,
70, right? About 70. give or take.
So 70 cases of Upper Deck to do this. So they had them all. They narrowed it down. So the guy has 80 raw McDavids and 20 raw Ovechkins. So he's submitting. So we talked about it, and he was a very nice guy. And he was like, all right, I'm trusting you. And he had them in these big top loaders, and he had notes with them, and there's no fingerprints. And like all the cars look beautiful. I looked at them. I was like, man, he's like, what do you think of these? I was like, well, I mean, they all look like they could be 10s. You know, who knows at the end of the day until they're actually reviewed and authenticated and graded. But so he goes, I'm going to submit 40 and 10 this time, and then I'll do the other 40 and 10. I was like, that's a perfect idea, right? So he gave me those cards. I actually, just after my conversation with him and his son, they were great people. They truly love the hobby. He doesn't think he's going to sell them. He's going to grade them and hang on to them. And so I took those cards with me all the way back to Halifax in my carry-on. I processed the order. I shipped it the next morning. The order got to Santa Ana. So that order is now being in the research department and heading to grading. So that will be very exciting to see come back. You know, I hope he gets a ton of 10s. They all look great. So fingers are crossed for them.
Interesting. All right. Seems good. James Fisher says that's the whole print run. Oh, wait until they all get graded. That's just gonna, you know, like I said, super short print. Low pop. That's why we kind of make the joke about the whole thing. It's like the Young Guns are really good and getting into BCJ. That's the thing about the Young Guns. The Young Guns are very good for, like, if you're a fan of the player or whatever, the Young Guns are good. But that's where the education piece comes in. It's like they're not rare. None of the Young Guns. They're all printed in very solid numbers. You know, pretty much pretty good numbers. They're the more accessible. They're generally speaking the more accessible rookie that holds some name brand value. Because when people think of like the big ones for these players, they think of the Young Gun, they think of the, you know, the Cup RPA, and they think about, you know, maybe a Future Watch. So like those are kind of but they cover kind of three different categories depending on your feeling. Some of the other ones can kind of usurp in, but that's usually the three, if you're just talking like the three common ones. And then everything else is just depends on your preference. Beyond that, it's like, well, what do you like? Some people like some of the Black Diamond ones that came out. They're pretty nice. I'm a big fan of the Ultimate Rookies. I like those myself, so I'm a fan of those. But again, that's personal preference. But those three are kind of like your standard, you know, canned answer. If somebody says, all right, I know nothing, I'm just grabbing these rookies for these guys, Cop RPA, Future Watch, Young Gun. You pretty much, that should cover you. That's standard enough.
Mm-hmm. No, that's true. They're so, Young Guns they're just so collectible by all ages. Like the amount of people that buy hobby boxes, you know, in November going into Christmas, they open them up, they build their sets. Like that still exists in the hockey card world, where I feel like in the other four sports, I shouldn't say baseball, but definitely not in football, basketball, but you know, you still have your tops guys in baseball that build the top set each year and do that, etc. But it's more and more so in hockey. The two products that I think Upper Deck guys build their Series 1, build their Series 2, do the extended, and the other is Tim Hortons. You know, the amount of people between those two products, I still do them. I don't do the Young Gun sets anymore. I forget when I stopped doing that, but Tim Hortons, same thing. It's a blast to build your set. It's fun to trade. I mean, that's part of the hobby and collecting. And I love that Upper Deck still engages in that. So they're not too hard to get. They're not too expensive, and they're super collectible, and everyone just loves the Young Guns.
Yeah, that's still the accessible one. Like for a lot of people, so that's kind of to their benefit sometimes of printing a decent amount of them. There's enough of them out there to go around where if somebody desperately wants a copy, like that's an extreme example, obviously. But if somebody wants a copy of a McDavid Young Gun, we can go on eBay and get you one. It's just a matter of what you're willing to pay. As long as you're willing to pay the going rate, we can get you one at different grade levels. We can get you one in the different, different graders. You know, you can have a raw copy, you can have a graded copy. You've got options, and that tends to be the case with a lot of those. So they're not too tough to find, but they're still at least accessible. So that's fair. Let me ask the kind of standard kind of question I like to ask. So the Edmonton show was a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more chill, as far as you guys got a chance to walk around a little bit and look for shop for stuff for yourself. What's the coolest or most interesting thing you recall from Edmonton? So let me start with Luke. Luke, most interesting or coolest that you saw at the Edmonton show?
You know what? I don't know. Can't really think of what was the coolest thing I've seen there. A lot of this stuff, a lot of vendors I see all the time, right? So obviously I saw a few of them from Toronto and stuff like that, and a couple from Winnipeg right previous to that. And then a lot of the vendors that are there are also vendors that are in our local. So I guess probably one of the coolest things was when with Luke, his patch, he's got the whole dry saddle out of 5 oil drop patch that he was giving away. But like I said, I mean, I see that all the time, right? So it wasn't really some cool that I've seen there, right? So,
all right, fair enough. Brad, coolest or most interesting? You got both, so you can pick the category that you want here. Coolest or most interesting?
I'll combine them because I wanted to buy it. I didn't pull the trigger, but there was a 1973 O-Pee-Chee unopened box of RCMP cards.
Okay.
Which I don't even remember really seeing the RCMP cards individually. Like, there's just not a lot of them out there. Okay. But to see the unopened box of 36 packs, I didn't even know there was such a thing. So I was close. I was back and forth. I thought I was going to get it at the end of the show, but I still think I'll buy it at the next Edmonton show. The guy will come down. I made him an offer which I thought was fair, and we'll see what transpires. But so that was super cool to me. Some of my purchases I can just go over, and this is how things always get random. I bought a miscellaneous lot of non-sports with Three Stooges, a whole bunch of Swanson WWF cards. There's some
we do like the Swanson. We appreciate.
I love them. There's the Hostess stickers. There was like a shoebox of miscellaneous wrestling from the 80s, 90s, which I just loved.
Oh, nice.
So I bought that lot for $500 from a guy. I bought a beautiful PSA 2 Jim Brown rookie from Mike at Eastridge. Gave me a deal. I bought a nice David Ortiz patch auto from Dynasty. That's just a really cool looking card.
Okay.
I bought a Willie McCovey PSA 4.5 rookie for a Willie McCovey PSA 4.5. Gorgeous looking card for $100. Like, something doesn't seem right in the hobby when that can happen.
It's rare to me also to see a 4.5.
Yeah.
Because the half grades are always a little bit tougher. Like, it has to be like nicer than the average 4 for them to even bother with it. Not quite to the 5, but it's kind of the half grades is always kind of interesting in the vintage side. But a 4.5 is kind of this interesting little middle ground.
Yeah. Then I bought 2 cases of 17-18 Upper Deck Series 2 with Tage Thompson, Series 1 or Series 2. Right? Yeah, Series 1. So I bought 2 cases of that. Luke found me a deal. I bought 10 hand collated sets of 9091 O-Pee-Chee Premier, which I'm going to crack and see if the Jaggers are worth grading.
Okay.
We bought 4 unopened boxes of 9091 O-Pee-Chee Premier, which, again, still love those boxes. Don't know what I'm going to do with those yet. What else did we buy, Luke? Was there anything else that was...
You got a whole bunch of wax.
Yeah, like different years, different boxes of wax. I bought some more 85 O-Pee-Chee wrestling sets, which I absolutely love those. I wanted my goal is to have a PSA 9 set of 85 O-Pee-Chee. Again, it might take me 10 years to do it, but maybe I'll never complete it. But it's a fun little task. But overall, it's just my usual randomness, completely all over the map. I know what I bought. I didn't open it yet. I wanted to do it on one of the shows.
Okay.
We visited all the card shops the day before the show. And when I was at Wayne's card shop, he had a box of 99 2000 Stadium Club Chrome.
Oh, okay. I remember those.
Yeah. So he had a price tag on it was $99. And I was like,
I'd open a box of 99 Chrome for that. Yeah.
I agree. I think, you know what we should do? We should, we'll do that on the show for sure.
Okay. All right.
Maybe I'll crack the box. I'll send you up half the packs, and we can open it. We can have a little pack battle.
I like it. Look, late '90s. You're talking my wheelhouse right there. That was the '90s was my favorite time collect. In fairness, though, I am still enjoying now, but in a different way. I enjoyed it in a different way. But in the '90s, I just love those products. Those late '90s products. I thought there was some really good stuff that came out, and I was a big fan of it. And in retrospect, that's still some of the funnest stuff. I love going back in the archives and being like, this stuff's really good. All right. Yeah. I like this. It was funny you mentioned the 99 2000 because that was my pickup for the day. I grabbed one of these. The thing is, I already have it, but it was so cheap when I saw it on eBay, and they had it on, you know how an eBay store, you can put like, you know, a store-wide coupon, whatever.
Yeah.
And they had it like 50% off. and it was like, so $25. So that's 99 2000 MVP. That's the gold script out of 100. Now I didn't realize this is number 39 out of 100, and I put it on my Instagram. I already had 40 out of 100. So actually, I've got them consecutively numbered. I was like, well, it was too cheap. I had to buy it. Like at $25, fine, I'll take it. I don't need another copy, but I'll take it at $25 if you insist.
It's funny how people look at numbers today. Like we were at the show today, and there's a gentleman from Montreal, always has some cool cards, and he was setting up his table. Him and I think it's his son that's usually with him.
Okay.
And he had a Cole Caulfield inscribed Future Watch Auto. And Cole Caulfield wears number 22.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he wears number 22, and he goes, check out the number on it. And I was like, oh boy, it must be his jersey number. And it's 21. I said, it's 21, but he wears 22. And he goes, yeah, but it's a 2021 product. And I was like,
that's a bit of a stretch. That's eBay 101 territory right there. That's a bit of a stretch.
It was so bad.
I like the fact that they were sequentially numbered, but it was a complete coincidence. I didn't notice it until I put the cards side by side. I figure, all right, I got a second copy. I'll take a picture of them side by side. As soon as I looked at them, I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll put them beside each other. I go, they are consecutively numbered. It's a weird quirk, but it's not necessary. Like I said, I've had the other one for years now. Happy to have it, but I was like, cheap enough. I'll take it. Sure. So real quick, let me read a couple of these comments. I know a couple of you guys are talking to each other, so all good. I want to make sure we left that so you guys could do that. Nova's saying, why isn't Gordy in the Tim Hortons Legend set? That's actually a good question. I haven't checked the checklist. I didn't know that, but that seems like a weird omission. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't, because that Tim Hortons Legend set thing, like Medano had a card in it. I grabbed that for a couple of bucks, and they got the normal complement of Legends in there. So I don't know. Maybe they got confused with the SP Signature Legends.
Oh my God.
That joke will never die. Doesn't matter how hard Billy tries. That joke will never die.
Completely.
He's clearly not legendary enough. So Eric Edwards, good evening, gentlemen. Good evening. Absolutely. Doing well. Thank you for commenting. I appreciate it. I'm kind of having fun. I like having fun with the conversation. I got to tell you guys, I got to be fiscally responsible, but not as exciting as the show there in Montreal. But we got the CSC show. They're doing a 2-day one over in Markham, and I'm like, But I'm like, no, I should be. And the problem is, I bought a couple of cards, and I was like, I should be responsible.
Well, I'm going to go. Do you want to go Sunday?
This week? You're gonna fly back over for some?
So yeah, so I'm here Friday. I'm going to be here all day tomorrow, and then all day Saturday, and then I just kind of thought I'd wing this. So I booked a train ticket. So I'm going to take the train from Montreal to Toronto. It's like a 5.5 hour train ride. So
no, that's right. That's about right. Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah.
It's not. Look, I'll be honest with you. Like, jokes aside, it's funny you mentioned this. If let's say I was a man of leisure, and I could just on a whim just head off and do whatever. A man of mystery as well. But if I was going to go to Montreal, I would do it by VRail, because it's actually quite comfortable. I've taken the VRail down to Ottawa and like a couple of things where this is when I had a little more time, but it's actually way more it's super chill. You can like sit back and you can get the Wi-Fi on there. You can be watching some stuff just chill. It's like, yeah, Mr. Conductor, do your thing, man. Do your thing. We'll be there in 4 or 5 hours. Sounds good.
Oh yeah, it's awesome. I had a 50% off coupon. So nice. I got it for $99. I'm going business class on the train.
Okay.
Includes a meal. And I was going to sit there. I'm ecstatic about it. I mean, me and Sherry took the train from Vancouver to Edmonton last year when we went from the Vancouver show to Edmonton.
Yep.
And people are like, "Oh, did you get a deal?" I was like, "No, it was like triple the cost of flying. It was like $3,200 for us to take the train from Vancouver, but it was the experience through the Rockies." And I honestly can say I don't know, maybe you're getting a little bit older and you enjoy things, but the train going across Canada, it's an incredible experience. You see things that you just don't see by driving or flying, and it's awesome. So
no, that's true. And I think if you have the time, I think it makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of good to it. I feel like between 4 to 6 hours is like a beautiful sweet spot, because it gives you enough time where you could, like with the Wi-Fi and everything, you could literally be on your laptop doing stuff. You could be watching a movie or doing you've got options. You don't have to be sitting there just, but you can also look out the window and check out the scenery as you ride by. So it's like you can do both. It's that little middle ground there, and you can have a meal in between. Go ahead, Luke.
how do you have business class on a train?
Oh, they're big.
It's
Big time.
nicer. It's a little
Yeah.
bit. You got more plush, seating, a little more space, Luke. Like, look, as a man of leisure yourself, you the problem is, Luke, is that you don't distinguish between your luxury accommodations in all things, and like what the commoners have to deal with. The business class is where we elevate it from the commoners.
Closest
did.
business class I got was I sat in the 5th row today. Coming here.
I'm trying to build you up here, Luke. I'm trying to really sell this image of you that as this big highfalutin influencer here. Like, work with me, man. Work with me here. I'm trying.
No,
Brad, but to your point, if you're coming in on Sunday, I'd be up for that. I'd be up for that.
So I'm gonna get in around 10:20 downtown Toronto. So I'm gonna flip just Union Station. I always stay in Toronto at the Intercontinental Hotel. So it's like actually I'll get off the train, I'll walk over, I'll grab a room, I'll get up early. I was going to Uber it over, but there might even be, it's in Markham now. Luke was telling me. I didn't even.
This one is going to be in Markham. They're in a hotel in Markham. That's where they're doing it. Yeah.
So I'll connect with you. We'll figure out how I get from downtown, and we'll connect on the way, or I'll meet you there.
Well, here's the thing. If okay, so let's have this conversation offline.
Yeah.
But if we're going to do that, I can definitely arrange it in such a way, because what I was thinking about is I was just going to book a room in the hotel and just go there and just already be there. So let me think about this one. Now this will make it a little more interesting.
Well, you know what? If we do, okay, we'll talk offline. But if you do that, then I'd sooner just go right. If you book that hotel Saturday, I'll just go right from the train station to the hotel and get a room there too, if there's rooms available.
Yeah. So we'll workshop this one. We'll workshop this one.
Yeah,
that's okay. Look, you can come too. You gotta hit the Learjet. Just
no, he's got to stay in Montreal. He's got to finish taking.
He just needs to clone himself. He uses the machine, clones himself.
No, I'm going to stay in Montreal. I'm going to have another Lester's sandwich.
Oh, yeah.
All right, fair enough. Hey, look, I'm not going to argue with you.
Brad brought me there today, and oh my, that was the best sandwich I've ever had in my life.
You're sold on the sandwich.
Yeah, Lester's sandwich.
All right,
Smoked
fair enough. I got you. All right, BCJ says, I've taken the train across Canada a couple of times. It's awesome, especially through the Rockies. It goes a different route than the highway. I'll say to you, my mom actually aspires to, if the timing is right and she can ever figure out. Now, the truth is she may never retire, so I don't think that's going to happen. But if she ever retires, like really retires, she'd like to take the train route and do that through the Rockies and everything. That's one of those things. If you've got the time and the ability, it's definitely, you're going to get a completely different view. Canada is really well built for that kind of thing, especially with the trains the way we're set up. And I'm used to it. Like, I joke on my YouTube videos when I do my pickup video, because I literally live beside a train station. So the running joke is that it's like, I'll be doing something, and then you just hear a train go by. It's like, yep, that's a train. I literally have got trains here all day long. So Kevin here says, you should rip through London and watch me tear up Beer League. Psh, right there. do the whole worldwide tour. Absolutely. But yeah, but that's one of those things. Like, I like what the CSC Canada guys are doing, and I mentioned that in the show that we attended. I want to say November, December, something like that. I haven't really been to any of the smaller shows in a very long time. Basically, it had been Expo for many years. I did enjoy it for what it is. I like the fact they're doing 2 days. I think that's interesting. But it's also kind of nice just to be walking around a smaller show. You get a little bit more time at each booth to kind of peek around and see if there's anything interesting. And I did scan through, as lazy as I normally am, I did get a chance to go through some of those like bargain boxes and just scan through a little bit and see if there's anything interesting. Because sometimes you find interesting stuff and then open up a box. Like there's things you can do at a show like that when you got a little more time. Because at the bigger show, if you really want to see stuff, you got to kind of jet around a little bit more.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So there's a plus and minus to it. Now, question for you guys. For the Edmonton one, and then I'll come over to the Montreal one. For the Edmonton one, it was smaller, obviously, but about how many tables did they end up getting into Edmonton? Do either of you guys catch that?
I think probably about 200.
That's pretty good. That's solid.
I think, because I think this one is, well, before I left tonight or whatever, I counted. I think there's probably about 200 for this Montreal one as well, right? So
that's
good.
The
same size.
Yeah, that's pretty solid. I like it. So I think shows like that are pretty good. Again, it's one of those things where I think the problem is if you spend all these years just going to Expo, just going to Toronto Expo, your brain is wired to like 400 and 500 tables. So then you'll go like, oh, these are small. It's like, no, it's not. 100, 200 tables is actually a pretty good size show by normal standards. It's just what you're used to, I guess. So Nova Grower says, how's construction going in the new AMG store? How's the progress making on that one?
Awesome. Scheduled the team. We talked about it all today. July 1st opening. That's our goal.
Mhm.
Whether or not we hit it, but we shouldn't have any delays on all the furniture, fixtures, lighting, all the bicycles. I'll leave that little clue that there's going to be some very unique things at AMG Collectibles. Let me tell you.
Interesting.
I'll leave it at the bicycles. You guys can read between the lines, but we're going anything that's card related over the years that people talk about consistently is going to be part of the decor.
All right. I like that. We'll have to see. At some point, we'll have to get Bubbles to go over there and re-christen the new store. That might have to be a thing. Yeah.
They're in for the launch. They're
Nice.
Booked and confirmed for the official grand opening.
Nice. I like that. Seems fair. So real quick, Paul here. Good evening, Paul. Peter Collects. Good evening. I would like to see PSA have a lower entry point for supersized cards. Currently, they must be at the regular service level, even for low-end postcards and the like. That's fair. I get what you're saying. That's fair. Josh here is saying, just stop in and remind everybody to smash the like button. Appreciate it, Josh. As Brad is taken into the darkness.
Oh, my God.
No, you're good. You just briefly went into the darkness.
Yeah, I'm on my phone. My phone rang, so
okay.
I think that threw me for a loop.
Yeah,
but I agree with Peter. It shouldn't be that much money, especially for the low end odd size cards. Obviously, it just takes longer, and it got to go.
You're good. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I do agree 100% with Peter, and hopefully I can, as I move forward with PSA, I can help make some of those adjustments for the collectors like Peter.
That's good. Sounds fair. But I think that'll be an interesting thing. I do like better the idea of the price point being based more on the value of the item. Like regardless, like unless it's something weird and niche or whatever, like if it's a lower price item, just give them a reasonable entry point so that they can do their thing. And it's going to take a little longer for some of that stuff. So I think that's fair. But just kind of balance it out. I think there's a balance to be had there that I think will help and make this a lot better for a lot of folks. So it looks like we got a couple of good comments here. Let me read this one. I find giant card shows overwhelming. I like to dig through the box and talk trade. Definitely enjoy small shows. That's perfectly good. It makes sense. That's part of the reason why I'm becoming a little bit more. I like the fact that the CSC guys are kind of in my area. Although the problem, again, Southern Ontario, is that, all right, Markham. Well, Markham is like an hour. It's like it's out of the way. I have to kind of plan it out in such a way where even if you go by car, it's like 45 minutes. I forget how long it is. It's like it's not a short trek over. It's a little bit of a hike. If you're in the right part of the city or in the right part of that section of the city, then it's a little better. But it just depends on where you are. So I have to kind of plan ahead of time and go, all right. So in order to get there, I got to do this, this, and this, and make sure I'm over there. And okay, now I'm good. Any thoughts on the eBay authentication program in Canada now? So they will impact demand for grading. At least indicates CSG has graders in Canada. Yes. So they're doing basically the authentication with it. I don't consider the eBay authentication thing though. When CSG does the authentication, I don't consider that the same as grading, but I get what Peter is saying. But it is good that they have some people, and it is kind of interesting that they do then have a Canadian address that the CSG authenticators can look at it. So where are you guys when if someone wants to send it to CSG in Canada, couldn't you guys theoretically do that? Question mark. And it doesn't seem like that's the case currently, which is kind of weird. It's like, so then what are these authenticators doing? What were they doing before?
Yeah.
Just seems interesting. But as far as the eBay authentication program, it's a mixed bag. There are elements of it that I like. There are elements of it that I do find a little annoying. And there's some things that I just find very funny. And I feel like I shared this on the Friday show, but I'll share it with you guys as well. I had an item go through the authentication program from the U.S. and they did the authentication thing and then dropped it off at the address that I gave them, and they authenticated the item. But the problem was it was a certified autograph, and what happened was it was in the slab and everything, so they authenticated it. But because they don't authenticate third party, because it was a sticker auto, they couldn't authenticate the auto. So they said, yes, this item is what it says it is, but we cannot authenticate the auto. And I go, well, that's redundant. It's a certified auto, so I don't really care if you can authenticate it or not, but thank you for letting me know.
Yeah.
So I was like, great. The only thing I needed you to do is just make sure that, the item's already in a third-party grader holder. It was already in a holder. So I was like, I'm comfortable. Just send me the item. It's fine. Just send it. So anyway, I don't know. Any thoughts on the eBay authentication program from the Canadian side? Obviously, we haven't experienced it yet. We haven't seen our version of it yet. But it's obviously going to kick in. It's going to be automatic. Now, what I'm concerned about, I'll quickly add this caveat. Obviously, whenever eBay does, eBay giveth and eBay taketh away. I do like that they've introduced the better discounted shipping for eBay sellers. This is good. And we've got a collectibles category, which I also really like. This is good. So, in traditional eBay fashion, this is good. Now, we're going to do eBay authentication for Canada. I'm a little lukewarm on this one.
Mhm.
I'm a little lukewarm. Speaking of Luke, thoughts?
So where is it? Like, where is it going to authenticate?
So there is an address in Canada where you were as Canadian. Obviously, it's just about to kick in. It hasn't really started yet, but presumably over the price threshold, which I think is $250. I think it's $250. So over $250, you'd have to send it to this alternate location where they would do the authentic, very similar to what they do in the U.S. You'd send it to this thing, and then this third party would ship it over to the buyer if everything clears authentication.
Did they say what the address is?
I think it's in Ontario. I don't remember exactly where, but I think
Well,
it's
it would be Grosvenor.
yeah, that's right. I think that's right. So there's got to be like a guy at Grosvenor who's like, "Yep, looks good."
100%. CG's again. I shouldn't say 100%, but
yeah.
My assumption is it will be at Grosvenor, and
right.
The items will come in there, and then they'll authenticate and ship out. So.
Well, because I was just thinking if it's Grosvenor or if it's ComC, right? So I didn't know which one.
Yeah, it'll be Grosvenor with their partners. I'm pretty sure that's where it would be.
Yeah.
So.
I'll double check, but it's a valid question. But I remember seeing a little bit about it. I only briefly scanned it, but I remember seeing a little bit about it. But it is obviously a Canadian address. But we'll get the specifics. Kevin here saying I'll be set up at the CSC June show, which should be exciting. Where is the June show? Do you already know? Is it at the first place? I'm assuming it's the first place, the one at the one in Mississauga. I'm assuming it's that one, but because this one is over in Markham. That's the 2-day show they're doing this time. But I'm curious. So if they're doing one in June, I'm curious if they're going back over to the Mississauga. Maybe they're bouncing back and forth between the two locations. I'm not sure.
Yeah, because they did the Markham before the one in Mississauga, right? So that's where it originally was. Is I think in the Markham one.
Yeah, it feels like they're bouncing back and forth, which isn't a terrible idea. Like the that convention center in Mississauga, it can hold stuff like that if under the right circumstances. Parking though is a bit of a challenge. Like that parking situation was craziness.
That day was crazy. Is at Elsa.
Exactly. So it's like so it's like it's a bit of a mixed bag, but it's not like the worst location in the world. But it's just there's nothing around it, so you kind of have to. You're going specifically for that thing, and that's all you're going there for.
Yeah, and it's true. Like I look at our Halifax show, we're at a venue that we can keep the tables at $20 a table and run with it, right? Mm-hmm. So I think sometimes it's nice to have shows like that venue that they had it at, the one that we were all at for the CSG show.
CC.
Great venue, awesome. But that was also a pretty penny. So at the end of the day, that gets translated back to admission costs, to vendors that have to pay for the space. So all that's in it. If you have I personally don't care where the show is. If you have a well-lit room and you have a big space and you have ease of access, like one level, easy parking for the vendors, have it there, right?
I think it's fair. So let me quickly get caught up on a couple of these here. Does the Montreal show have more hockey as a percentage compared to the Expo in Toronto? I would think so.
Yeah, 90% hockey. 90, maybe. I might even go so far to say 95% hockey at the Montreal show.
Mm-hmm. So real quick here, more eBay love. eBay is a love-hate relationship with a lot of folks, so I get it. Maybe PSA will support graded cards eBay authentication in Canada in the future. You never know. It'd be nice to have that option because PSA does in the US one, PSA does the authentication on the graded cards. Even if it's not PSA, which is kind of interesting. It's like, so what are you doing exactly? We did look up on the number. I'm sure you did. Okay. Just got a card that's going through the Canadian authentication. We'll advise. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate that. Authentication is interesting that you can take more risk in buying raw cards, assuming you have that safety net. That's the hope. That's supposed to be the idea. In addition, specifically what this authentication is supposed to do, authentication is a bit of a weird word, but what they're doing is like validation as well. Because the idea is supposed to be, in addition to doing some kind of authentication, they're also validating that when you're buying something, the item that you're being promised is the item that they actually receive, and in turn they would send to you. That's part of the validation that you're supposed to be getting for this. Mm-hmm. My concern is with all eBay things is, again, giveth and taketh away, right? we get better seller discounts on the shipping, and then they go, oh, we're going to do this authentication. It'll protect you better. And then we wake up one day, oh, and by the way, here's the fee on the authentication that is mandatory.
Yeah, exactly.
So
right?
we're all waiting for that shoe to drop. So we're waiting for like, all right, so how much is it going to cost us when the time comes? Because you're going to make it mandatory, and then you're going to institute a fee. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Mm-hmm. Like when I look at buying, you're buying raw cards at shows is a great, because you see the card, you do it yourself.
Yeah.
When you're buying most raw cards online, usually there's a reason, especially from a lot of power eBay sellers, there's a reason why that card is raw. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the stat would be. What would you guys think? 90% of stores and power eBay sellers grade cards in today's environment.
Well, it's not that high, but it's high. I'd be like 80%.
Power sellers, like, do you think there's someone that has a hobby
power
shop?
seller, sure. Okay, fine. Power sellers, right. I'd be more inclined with your number then.
Right. So like when we do it, like we sell raw cards on, and we have it very clear through AMG Collectibles. When we sell raw Young Guns, right in the description is these cards are expected to be near mint plus.
Yeah.
We grade cards, do not expect these to be 9s or 10s.
Right.
You know, and we sell them that, and it's a great marketplace, and people get better deals for it. But I see all the time that people are submitting cards to us at PSA, and they're buying a lot of raw cards off eBay, and they're sending them in, and they're not getting back the rates of success at getting 9s and 10s isn't as high. And I try to explain to them, well, where are you buying your cards from? Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm picking them all up on eBay. Yeah, but I'm buying them from good sellers. Okay, well, most of the power sellers grade cards. So yeah, it's all part of that whole ecosystem that you want to educate people so they don't, because it hurts us when it comes back and they're like, oh, I didn't get near as many 10s. Well, those cards were screened before you bought them by another seller, right?
Right, exactly. So Kevin here is confirming that the one in June is Mississauga. Okay, that's good. Good to know. That'll make it good for planning. Give me a little time to think about that one as well. So I think that's good. So this one here, I just got to this one. Waiting for my invoice from Langley. If you're still waiting on an invoice from Langley, you should write in or call in, because it could be a contact information issue. I've had that where I had to reach out to Brad and I go, hey, where's my invoice? And they double checked and the email was wrong. So it's like so it's a case if you haven't gotten your invoice and you think you should, by this point, if it's from last year, ask. But don't just ask here. Ask over the email. Shoot a message. Yeah,
because we have I'm going to say there's a reholder or something no, I think everything from Langley is done now.
Yeah, but regardless, if you specifically reach out to the contact info, by the way, there's some contact info there. If you reach out specifically to contact info, you can get what the status is. If there's a delay, you'll find out there's a delay. But if the stuff's just sitting there and they're waiting for somebody to reach out to and the contact info is wrong, get it updated and get it corrected.
Maybe in the junk mail too.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So that's why it might be worthwhile, follow up on that's why I said I found it odd that I wasn't getting an invoice. And look, I'm literally doing the show. Brad and I have each other's phone numbers. But even still, I was like, hey, by the way, where's the invoice number? And then they're like, oh, email address is wrong. And then they sent it to me.
Yeah, well, we had one. A friend of the Friday night show has 2 different names. Mm-hmm. So we had a submission, and I'm going through the list. I'm like, all right, every now and then we'll just try to call everybody by phone and say, look, we've had your order for months now. Just wondering, maybe we have the wrong contact information. So I called this guy. I looked at the name. I left a voicemail. Yeah, it's Brad from PSA Canada calling. My phone rings afterwards, and it's a friend of the Friday night show, a buddy of ours. And he goes, hey, did you just call me? I said, no. And he goes, huh, that's strange. And then he checked his voicemails. I think that's how he checked his voicemails. He's like, yeah, you got my cards back. I was like, I don't get any cards for you. And he was like, oh, they're under my other name. I was like, what? Yeah. I had no idea.
It's a secret identity.
Exactly.
Give a secret spy. Peter says, I was at Montreal show a couple of years ago. There was an okay amount of baseball expos. Okay, so here you're saying, BNML, Brad, Luke, and PSA Canada last 3 weeks and no response. Sounds like a spam.
Yeah, you know what? Just because
I know the phone number.
No, it's because Jimmy has stuff that's I think still coming back. It's like jumbos or something like that. Okay. That's coming back. Yeah, so the whole order is not back yet. But
from Langley, from last year's Langley.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
From November, yeah.
Oh, okay. Otherwise, though, in a situation like this, though, I would seriously, I would recommend using the phone number.
Yeah.
At that point, just talk to a person. Make a call and ask and leave a voicemail, whatever you need to do, and then talk to a person.
Yeah, and that's strange because I just know I respond within 24 to 48 hours to every person that reaches out to me. So
Mhm.
Luke's going to fix that now. So whatever the miscommunication is, we will fix it.
Yeah, seems fair. And like I said, worst case scenario, pick up the phone and make a call.
Yeah.
Like I'm just saying what I would do in that situation. If it doesn't seem like the contact's getting through, pick up the phone and make a call. Saw a guy with all the graded PSA, with all graded PSA eBay store except a single raw lot of 2 cards. Yes, there's maybe a problem. Lost bypass authentication. Yeah. Steve K, just a shout out to PSA Canada. Used them for the first time last expo. It was a flawless process. Good stuff, Steve. Like it. But yeah, I think though to the point of JSIT card here, stuff happens. But it's one of those things where you do have multiple avenues of communication. If you're emailing, you're not getting a response. Like seriously, pick up the phone, and make a call then, because it's your stuff. Like if it's important, you need to follow up on that, and then find out what's going on. It might be a delay, or there might have been some communication issue, or it could just be going to spam filter for some reason. All possibilities.
Yeah, Jimmy always has like weird, like very unique stuff, and he got half of it back already in the last Bosa show, I think it was, or Langley show that we went to. So he's got that back, but we're just waiting on I think 1 or 2 other.
Luke, just reach out to him. Just send an email. You got his email contact. We'll do that tonight, so he's all taken care of.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So we've got that covered. Now, let me talk to you guys for a couple minutes about this, because we did kind of briefly chat on it as well. Obviously, we had the draft lottery, and it ended up going for Chicago. And I loved watching social media lose its mind, which was fun. I always enjoy that. Now, here's a question, though. Now that we know that Connor Bedard, more than likely, unless they do what I suggest, Chicago could trade the draft pick to the Dallas Stars for a bag of pucks. That'd be great. I would appreciate it. Be fine. He could join Jason Robertson, then Bobbles could lose his mind. His head would explode. It'd be fantastic. Short of that, if Chicago uses the draft pick, as expected, then Connor Bedard, Chicago. So let me start with this. Luke, Connor Bedard, Chicago. Does this do anything different from what you would have expected with the Connor Bedard cards that come out? Good, bad, indifferent, neutral? Where do you think it falls?
I think for his patches and stuff will be huge.
Oh, there'll be some good patches. That's true.
Yes. Chicago is always known as one of the best patches out there, and ones that people chase. Even if you're not a collector, you collect the patches that they have. They've got one of the best ones. I think if Bedard has a nice patch out there, yeah, those are going to be huge. As for him being in Chicago, I think it's way better than it would be for some of the other markets out there.
So you're saying you weren't feeling Anaheim and Columbus?
I wasn't feeling Columbus for sure.
I don't think Anaheim would have done much for him either, to be honest, but fair enough.
But at least Anaheim, he would have been with like Zegras and, young core that's going up, so.
Yeah, better team. Yeah. That's fair. But same kind of question, Brad. As far as where he stands, like there's a lot of Bedard hype anyway. So there's tons of hype. It was going to be a lot of hype regardless of what scenario played out. Original 6 team, pretty good fan base. Like it's already done a lot for their season tickets. They sold like $2.5 million worth of season tickets like immediately after winning the lottery. So obviously local market, big impact. So that's a big deal. Does it do anything market wise? And let me expand it for a second. And I'll include both of you in this. Beyond the basics. Does this affect? So first, does it do anything to the cards? Second, does any of this affect the hype for when he ends up getting into Upper Deck flagship? Does this affect the pre-sale price? Does this increase the cost per box to an interesting? We expect the Young Gun will do very well, and with a one-on-one Young Gun, potential chase draw out there. And by the way, I'll include on the Cardboard Coach's YouTube channel podcast thing, Billy Celia was there, and he all but promised that he will throw his body in front of the train to make sure that the one-of-one, when it happens for Bedard, is in hobby boxes instead of EPAC. So he's going to throw his body in front of the train to make sure it goes there. And I'm holding him to it. Billy, better throw body in front of the train. Make it happen. But assuming it does, so assuming you've got a legitimate shot of pulling a Connor Bedard 1-of-1 in a box, a flagship, so a hobby box that you can get physically in your hand, does this drive the pre-sale prices way up? Series 1 or Series 2, Brad, thoughts on that piece?
Yeah, no, absolutely it does, especially when I know, I can say I'll put a $500,000 bounty on the card right now because I know there's another person that's going to put a bounty bigger than that on it. So we can make an announcement right now. Brad Hartland personally will buy the 1-of-1 Connor Bedard, as long as he doesn't break his leg and isn't playing in the NHL when that is released, for $500,000.
Wow. Wow.
Because I know someone's coming out with one a lot bigger than that. So,
So look, my favorite part is we were joking about this on my YouTube channel. We were doing a little watch along for one of the playoff things, and we were joking about how the best thing for Upper Deck to do would be to make sure the fix is in. You know, in honor of the draft lottery, Upper Deck does its own fix where it's like, hey, by the way, it's like, hey Carlos, I decided I'm going to open some flagship. I'm going to open this one pack with an X on it. Oh my God, Connor Bedard 1/1. and literally Bobbles was like, oh, then Brad will call you to buy it. So Brad, now that you have a bounty, so after I pull my influencer pack that has been clearly marked with the Connor Bedard 1/1, I will take you up on your $500,000 offer.
Okay, good.
I don't care if the other guy has more. I want your $500,000.
I love it. No, that's awesome.
We'll talk about the terms. We'll talk about terms because he's like, I'm going to talk to some people on the inside. It's like, what happened? It's like, Carlos, did you open a box? No, I just opened one pack. It's like, and it's already the mag. It's like, the fix is in, my friends. The fix is in, bros.
Oh, that's good.
Hey, may as well. Listen, if you're going to go for it properly, Brad. If you're going to go for it properly. It's like, if you're going to do the fix, make sure it's already in a mag. Make sure it's already like, it's crisp, straight off the line, straight into the mag.
Yeah.
Sealed. James says Chicago patches can be a real, no doubt. Absolutely very true. Casey here. Casey texts, good evening. Hey guys, it's late. Question if it asks, are there any special price for Montreal Expo this weekend?
Yeah, so we're doing the same thing, the $27 Canadian per card, which we're also doing on the website. It's kind of our official pricing for the time being now. So it was so successful at Toronto. We did it in Edmonton. We're going to do it in Montreal. And we do it online as well. But when we do it online, it's a minimum 20 cards, simply from the standpoint of the work that's involved for us. So you need to have 20 cards to get the $27 rate if you submit direct to us. And yeah.
Makes sense. I like it. So James here, could he break Chicago's? I'm assuming you mean their lineup immediately. He's pretty small. No, I'm not too familiar with it, but I would think the way Chicago is configured, he'd crack the lineup. He'd be on there.
Did you see, so the night, as soon as he went to Chicago, I went, all right, I'm going to go online and let me stock up on who I think that he potentially could play with. And I looked at the lineup for the Chicago Blackhawks as they finished up last season. You take Seth Jones and Jonathan Toews out of that, and it's up there with Upper Deck SP legends.
Ooh, strong.
Honestly, I have you got to look at it. It's sad. I did not realize that Chicago dumped everybody that they had, and it's there. It's bad.
Yeah, Lucas Reichel.
Right.
It's a bit rough. It's a bit rough.
What's their? Do you see their final scoring? Seth Jones was their leading scorer, right? Did you sort that by?
I'm just kind of scanning through, and I got to see. So are you saying, Brad, that you don't feel like this his line mate here? You don't feel like that's gonna work?
No.
So you're not feeling this. It's not working for you. It's very sad. This is hurtful. These are hurtful words that Brad is saying, Luke. Hurtful words.
I'm going to try to find this. I got it right here.
All right.
I forgot about. I can never say this guy's name. Atheniseo.
That's you.
I wouldn't try to say that name. Go on.
Oh my God. Okay, so he had 40. He's their leading scorer with 40 points. Then the guy Radish had 37. Seth Jones 37. T. Johnson, I think was that Tyler Johnson. He had 32. Jason Dickinson 30. Kershaw 25. Kachachuk 16. Jones 16.
Yeah, the point that I'm making. Look, even as a hockey casual viewer, I knew Chicago's cupboard was bare. It was a very bare. It's good from the original 6 angle. It's good for those rookie patches angle. It's good for the fact he's going to crack the lineup right away. But it's bad in the fact that they're kind of terrible. So it's one of those. So basically they'll need to use whatever cap room they have to get help. They're going to have to try to find some bodies they can get in there that'll at least make the team serviceable. So that'll help. That'll be a big one.
And they will, because when they're looking at free agents are going to want to come to that team now.
It could help for sure.
Yeah.
So Paul C says, Carlos does have a nearby train. This is true. All hail the content gods. Always, Paul. Always. So Casey says, so no minimum 20 card submission if you submit in Montreal. Yeah, you can submit 1 card, 2 cards, 5 cards, whatever. Yeah. When you're doing it at the show, you can just submit it. It's fine. It's not like Crosby dropping to Pittsburgh in 2005. Yes, you're right. Well, Crosby, when he got there were 3 consecutive number 1 draft picks. They had drafted a goaltender, they had drafted Malkin, and Crosby was the 3rd number 1 draft pick of those 3. So they at least had some talent. And yeah, Chicago is not in that position right now. Concerned about his size. I don't think that's as significant in the NHL. Look at it this way, James. I don't know what his stats are in terms of height and weight. Is he bigger or smaller than than Martin St. Louis?
He's big.
Martin St. Louis, yeah. But my point is that Martin St. Louis had a pretty successful career, and this game is even more adept to a guy like that right now. It's actually a better game for those guys.
Sorry, I'm watching in the background over here the New Jersey Carolina games in overtime.
Oh, so actually playing a close game for once. It's not a blowout.
It's 2-2 in OT, and New Jersey just took. I hate this rule. I get why it's there, but the New Jersey D just fired it out over the glass. Mm-hmm. So to get a 2-minute penalty, it's like, ugh. I get why that rule's in place, but that's a killer. It just narrowly went over the glass, right?
Right. Okay. No, that's fair. So Logan here says, I hope he pulls in Eric Lindros. Wow, rejects the Chicago.
Whoa.
Dang. Logan's trying to declare war on Chicago. They got some mean streets. Listen, don't go to the National. They got it's over in Rosemont. It's near Chicago. They got some mean streets over there, man. Be careful. Don't want to declare the war on them. Yep, Chicago's not deep at all. Seth Jones isn't going anywhere with that contract. There you go. No worries. Yep. Bedard is 5'10"-ish. Yeah, that's fine. In today's NHL, that's okay. They like all you got to do is look at, like, in all seriousness, all you got to do is look at this season and this playoff especially. The playoffs are where normally checking tightens up and whatever. And how many 6-3, 7-2, 7-3, 6-1 games are we seeing? Like, and teams are trading blowouts. You blow a team out one night and then they blow you out the next night. And I think Bobbles did like quick napkin math, and he went, and apparently the goal difference between Dallas and Seattle was very tight, but that's because they had traded blowouts. So in terms of goals, they were pretty close to even. But if you look at the individual games, it's like very few of them were actually competitive. All of them were like, all right, you win by 3 goals, I win by 5 goals, you win by 2 goals. And I was like, wow. I think the only games that were close, I think the Toronto games have at least been close. Even though Toronto lost the first 3, they were all at least 1-goal games. So that was like the only series so far that hasn't had like a crazy blowout in them for the most part.
Yeah, the overtime games, right?
Yeah. So there was so the goal scoring is way up. So like they're still getting a fair bit of open ice, even though, like, you know, the playoffs are usually very tight. You know, sad list for Bobbles, but Jason Robertson suddenly is getting like halted because guess what? All that space you had in the regular season, they know you're a guy who likes to shoot, so that you're the guy they're going to try to make life hard. It's like they're crowd this guy. Don't give him room. Don't give him room to work. Somebody's got to be on him all the time, basically harassing him. That's playoff hockey. If you're one of these skilled players, you have to understand that they're going to target you. You're the one they're going to go after.
If you watch Game 4 of the Carolina and New Jersey, the first period, I honestly, when I was watching, I said, New Jersey's going to make this. They dominated Carolina in the first period. The first, 10, 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. I was like, New Jersey's going to win the cup, if they keep playing this way. And then the second period, Carolina scored 7 goals or 6 goals, and it was 7-1.
Yeah. It gets out of hand.
It does. It's crazy.
These games have all been kind of like, once a team starts getting down, once team starts getting down a little bit, it's like all of a sudden, boom, it opens up. This playoff has been weird though. I'm not used to seeing these many really high scoring one-sided affairs. It's like, okay, I guess whatever. Baz here, good evening. Tons of scoring this year, very much so. New hockey fans are great when playoffs hit. Yeah, no, for sure. I'll say it's been exciting. Although once the game gets out of hand, that kind of loses a little bit of the luster for me. I do like when it's a little tighter and the teams have to fight for it a little bit more. It's a little bit more fun, but it happens. Logan says Lucas Reichel is the guy people are grabbing for Young Guns in Chicago. All right, sounds good.
What's his rookie and what series and year? Is he this year's series?
You can fill in the blanks on that one, Logan, since you got the name there. But I'll say this. So real quick, guys, let me take a stab at this, and for the folks in the chat, we can play this game real quick. Oh, speaking of which, just to clear, Brad, were you ever able to get a hold of, I want to say Anthony, who won the Connor McDavid thing?
No. So if you, No, I didn't, and I completely forgot. I didn't forget about it, but was I supposed to contact him, or did we tell him to contact me?
I think you mentioned to it. So what I'll do, I'll go see if I can find the comment, and I'll try because I don't have his contact. So I'll try at least messaging him on there and at least see if he can see the notification.
If we can tell him to reach out to me directly, and I'll make sure we take care of him.
Yeah, we just need info to do. In order to do something, we need info.
Absolutely, so, and that was awesome. That was fun. We want to do more things like that on the channel as we get back to, after this week here, I'm back in Halifax for a couple months. I'm sure I'll be on the road for a few things here or there, but the plans we have for the channel to keep on expanding are just we're finally going to have the time to put the efforts as we get settled down. So
we want to have the ability, to put you guys behind the curtain. It's just a matter of having time to talk. It's one of those things where we have ideas, and Brad and I have thrown a couple back and forth, but it's one of those things we literally need to sit down and have a conversation. That's why if Brad's saying if he's going to be at the show in Sunday, it's no, let's meet up then at the show on Sunday. It'll give us a little chance to chat in person, makes life easier. So I think we can definitely do that. And then that'll give us a chance to come up with some cool ideas for you guys, and that'll make it a lot more fun.
We should do a 1990s hunt for Jaeger.
I almost want to if the Fanatics Overlords ever bless me with the fortune that I'm waiting on, I want to set up a new studio, and maybe what I'll do is I'll just wallpaper my walls with 1990 OPG Premier Medanos. I'll literally wallpaper my walls with them because there's so many, and I'll just that'll be the background. It'll be fantastic. Everyone will love it. It'll give Brad something to do with some of his. By the way, I don't want to downplay this. I did enjoy that when he went over the stuff at the show. It's I'm liking the Brad going. It's still randomness, but I'm liking that a lot of the randomness is including some wrestling. I'm enjoying it, Brad. I'm enjoying it. Some Swanson, some of that 86 Peach, 85 Opeachy. A little bit of wrestling is creeping in there. I like that.
Well, what's good is the guy. Remember when I showed the Macho Man a couple weeks ago?
Yes.
That came back.
Yeah.
He, I didn't even know, and nice guy from New Brunswick. I don't know him personally. I just know him through emails and him grading cards at PSA, but I always love his orders.
Yeah.
And he sent me an email. He goes, "Did I see my Macho Man make an appearance on the show?" I said, "Yes, you did." And I said, "I didn't know you joined the show." He goes, I don't know if he said he worked or I forget exactly what it was, but he always watches the show on replay. Mm-hmm. And he's a huge wrestling guy. And Carlos, he's got, somehow if we could ever connect with him, even on the Friday night, he's got cool wrestling stuff. And he always sends in something that my knowledge is, there's stuff that he sends in. I'm like, I never seen that before. You know what I mean? Which is very, very cool. So
yeah, they're the 80s and the early 90s, WWF, then WWF, now WWE later. They did a lot of stuff because it was a more obscure thing anyway. It was like these food issues and these weird things that were not normal, distribution methods that you would expect today. And even though wrestling was huge in the 80s, people never caught on to the card thing. It never caught on as much as you think. Oh, Hulk Hogan and all these guys, they're having these big, massive shows and drawing 20 million viewers on TV in the 80s for some of the Hogan big main events and stuff. But guess what? Cards, Luke? Nah. They existed, and the people that liked them, they could get their hands on them, but nobody else was really paying close attention. It was they just existed. They were just there.
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird one. It's kind of become full circle. I would say wrestling cards are more popular today than they've ever been, but even still, that's not as crazy as some of the categories. But it's fun if you're into it. I think it's kind of enjoyable. So real quick, I'll read a couple of these here. Carolina wins. Yeah, we got Luke there in the background. We got that covered. I enjoyed being able to watch the game partially through your window there, Luke. That's been kind of fun. Logan says it's 22-23 Series 1. Got it. Thank you, Logan. So when Brad comes on here, we'll ask. I think, am I wrong that it's until the end of May? The $27 special?
Not sure when we have it, to be honest. We started at $27 just for the shows, but we knew so many shows, and I think people just wanted to send it as well. So, like I said, I'm not sure when Brad plans on shutting that
so
down.
right now, all we've got here is we've got the special. It's $27 per card, up to $4.99 value. Yeah, we'll double check with Brad. He'll be able to give us the specifics. It'll be easier.
I see for now, probably for sure. Oh, here it is.
Yeah. Hey, Brad. The $27 special. How long is that going on for?
I think it might be definitely for the rest of May.
That's what I thought. Yeah, for the rest of May for sure. Yeah.
I kind of feel like it's going to settle in at that. That's going to be the number.
Okay.
that's my thought anyways. Don't know for sure, but as we keep on working through, all the things that we're working on with the collector's umbrella now, as we'll discuss more as we keep on. How do I say that the proper way? As my role grows with the collectors, the parent company, which I've been talking about for 6 months now, but over the course of the next 2 to 3 weeks, collectors is going to make even a bigger impact across Canada as a whole.
Stay tuned as you find out more about Brad's role in the secret cabal.
Exactly.
Luke comes by.
Yeah, I'm learning what my role is. My role is every day. I'm part of different emails and groups and chats, and my role when it's all official, and it will be very interesting because I can't really talk about it because I don't even really know exactly where the majority of my focus is going to be. But all I know is that it's good for Canada. It's good for our team. We're going to make things as easier for Canadians to be involved with collectors in general, the parent company. So
that's fair. Awesome. I have another little to send it in. Good stuff. Thank you, James. All right. Now, what I was going to ask you guys, and we'll kind of wind her down on this one. By the way, it's been fun conversation to hang out, so that's good. I appreciate that. And thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on the road from Montreal. So that's fun. Now, here's my question. All right. We still got 8 teams left who are still mathematically in the game. Even Eric's beloved Toronto Maple Leafs. Eric's passionate, beloved Toronto Maple Leafs. Don't get it twisted. He hates the Boston Bruins. He hates them with a passion of 1,000 burning suns. He thinks Bobby Orr is the most overrated hockey player in history. Bit harsh. I wouldn't go quite that far, Luke. I wouldn't go quite that far. That seems mean. But that's how he feels. That's how passionate he feels about it. But 8 teams left. 7 of these teams are going to be incredibly disappointed because the way this draw played out, they've all got a really good shot if they can advance to the next round. I like almost all the matchups and all the draws. Nobody's a prohibitive favorite as far as I'm concerned with these teams, the way they're configured. 8 teams left. Who you like out of what's left? And go ahead, don't all say the Leafs all at once. But out of what's left, out of the 8 teams remain that are mathematically still in it, who do you like to actually hoist the cup at the end of this run? Luke?
I can't say.
So biased. Go ahead.
You got a 1 in 8 chance, man. You got a 1 in 8 chance.
No, you see, because if I say the team I want,
look, you just say the Maple Leafs. I know that's what you want to say.
So I have to choose somebody else to have my team win.
I don't want you to think this. I don't want you to think this of me. But look, at the beginning of the playoffs, and Brad, you know this, at the beginning of the playoffs, I picked the Boston Bruins with great and total sincerity. Because it would have been awful if the Bruins were to disappoint after a historic record-breaking regular season. And look, I was disappointed. I was crushed. When they lost. It hurt. It hurt my feelings. But it happens. Sometimes you get it wrong.
I agree. I had New Jersey and Colorado in the final, and after about 5 minutes ago, I am officially done with my 2 finalists. So.
There you go.
So if I got to go right now, do you want to say, how did you word the question, Carlos?
Because I just basically I said I gave the caveat because I wanted to include my commentary on this. That I go in the time that I've watched Stanley Cup Finals, I have rarely seen an 8-team draw that is as interesting as this one. Like obviously I've got my favorite. Look, flat out, I'm a Dallas fan. I want to see Dallas win, obviously. But 7 of these teams are going to be very disappointed when this is over. No matter who wins, 7 of these teams are going to be like, we had a good shot. Our draw against all of these teams are interesting. Because just off the top of our heads here, seriously, go to the East. Jersey hadn't won since 03. Carolina, I think, is 02. I could be mistaken in the exact number, but I'm somewhere in that neighborhood. Somewhere in about 20 years. Leafs since 67. And the Panthers have never won. That's the East. Okay? So a long time or never. And then over in the West, 2 expansion franchises, Dallas 99, and then we've got Edmonton 1990. None of these teams have won recently or at all. So you're going to get a relatively fresh winner regardless. It's been a while regardless of who wins.
Yeah.
So I want to put it in the context. So I'm like, think about that. No matter what, I like this kind of draw because it makes it interesting. It's not like one dominant team is gone. We don't have Tampa. Tampa was in the last 3 Stanley Cup Finals. They're not here. Colorado won last year. They're not here. So a lot of these teams that, the President's Trophy winners, shockingly, were defeated. Just tragically. Terrible. Shame. But None of those teams are involved in this. Everybody else who's left, I think they've all got a shot if they can get out of this round. But they've all got a shot. So who do you like out of who's left? Luke, we've given you enough time to stall and come up with a diplomatic answer. What do you got?
I'm going to say Florida.
There you go. All right.
What?
He's trying to avoid saying Edmonton. He doesn't want to say it. He doesn't want to jinx him so bad. He goes, "Oh, don't make me say it. I don't want to." It's basically what happened when I picked Boston. And if you had looked at the screen when I did it on the Friday show, the look on Eric's face of abject horror, he goes, "You did this on purpose," and I'm like, "Yes, I did." Because no matter what happens, either I get to declare victory or I get to cackle and maybe do a video package showing their defeat, which I might have done, allegedly. So I did. All right, Brad, who you got?
Toronto Edmonton final. Edmonton hoisting the cup with
Wow.
McDavid.
Spicy. That's gonna do. What's that gonna do for McDavid futures in that scenario? If that scenario plays out, ooh.
Yeah, but
Huge
Yeah.
for the hobby.
in saying that too, though, like I honestly, I don't need Florida kicking around. I don't need Carolina or Seattle kicking around. Really Dallas, Edmonton, Toronto, and I'm saying this because I'm a fan of players now more than teams in the NHL. Mm-hmm. I look at things from the hobby standpoint. Mm-hmm. Dallas, the best young team in hockey overall. I feel that way, same as New Jersey, but they're gone now. And then Edmonton, Toronto. So selfishly, from the hobby standpoint, those are the three teams: Dallas, Edmonton, Toronto, that will have the biggest impact on the hobby. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to see all three of them.
That's why I'm jinxing Florida right now.
There you go. There you go. All right, so real quick, I'll read a couple of these here. Bobby says, "Wow, big news is coming to fruition." Hey, that's important. Leafs in 7. Logan. Nothing would be... Look, I said it before. If you're a Leafs hater, there's two scenarios that would have been funny. The sweep would have been funny. But the more Leaf thing to do is to win Game 5, win Game 6, burst into flames in Game 7. That is the traditional. And in fact, be up in Game 7, late, and then lose. That would be the Leaf thing to do.
They have the wall now.
They do. They do indeed. That is a statement fact. Nova saying, "What is AMG planning to do for collector? Don't focus on graded cards." Brad, you tell Nova Guru that you will allow the peasants who will not collect the graded cards to purchase these raw cards.
Absolutely. So the one big thing is that AMG Collectibles is doing is building the space called the Attic, which is going to be home to, there will be nothing graded in there, and it's going to be home to the true, raw, authentic collectors of all things trading cards and memorabilia.
Look at this guy with the fancy marketing copy. That sounds rehearsed. Look, that sounded like it sounded like it goes. I came up with. It's like, what did you say? He's like, yeah, oh, got it. All right, I memorized it. We're good.
Do you know what? It kind of rolled off my tongue, and usually I get tongue tied when I'm.
That's why I have questions about preparation. Luke, was there preparation in this? Was there like some ad copy that was studied ahead of time? I felt a little smooth.
I think it's from being up from 2:30 a.m. this morning, driving all the way to Montreal, getting here, going with Luke, going to the show, going for Lester's Smoke Beat, back in the hotel, and I'm thinking within the next 25 minutes, I am going to be in bed, and I am so excited.
Nice. All right, we'll read a couple of these last comments, and we'll get her going here. I keep flip flopping. I hope a Canadian team. It's been too long? Yep, it's been since '93. '93 for a Canadian team. Luke wants Dallas versus Robertson collect. Obviously, Seattle is coming and ruining everyone's dreams. Hey, that's what they're hoping for. CC says, if Vegas and Seattle makes the West Finals, does that say anything about the long-established teams? No, not really. The NHL's done a good job the last two because Vegas is the one that started it. They've changed their policy on expansion franchises. They've gone out of their way to make sure. Now, Vegas was the most extreme example. With Seattle, though, they still gave them pretty good. The goal with the NHL and these expansion teams is don't leave them out in the wilderness, out in the cold. Give them an opportunity to actually be able to get valid. Look, when Vegas did their expansion thing, who did Vegas get? They got Marc-Andre Fleury as their goaltender. Whether you like Marc-Andre Fleury or not, he's a 3-time Cup winner. He's one of the all-time leaders in goaltending wins. So it's not like they got a scrub. They didn't get just some random dude who was at the end of his career. They were actually able to get a viable, serviceable goaltender who still had some gas in the tank. Well, as an expansion franchise, immediately that gives you. So you're able to pick up pieces that actually had some ability and some talent. So they were able to be good immediately. Now, they happen to do a particularly good job drafting and building that team initially. And Seattle's done the same thing. They built a scrappy team that is able to compete. And that's good for the league. It's good that these teams are valid. It means that Seattle and Vegas actually got to build a little bit of a fan base. Does that make sense, Luke? Any thoughts on that?
No, it's true. I think the way that they did these expansions, whatever, definitely is way better than they did with Anaheim. You know,
And Florida, the original time, and a lot of these other teams that is like, and Tampa Bay, and Ottawa Senators, and a lot of these teams that came into being and they were garbage for years, like literally garbage. It's kind of better if you're starting up in a new market for the team to at least you don't want them to win the Stanley Cup per se necessarily, but you want them to be competitive. If they're at least valid as a franchise, that allows you to actually build a fan base out of nothing basically. And look, there are some fans right now that are being born into Seattle just because of the way this team is played. Even if they don't advance another round, they've still done a really good job building a base for a fan base now in Seattle.
Yeah, that was true. And you can arguably say at the beginning of the hockey season, almost every team they have a chance. I know it's a long shot to say you win the cup, but going into this year, I remember thinking Boston was on their way down. I really did. Like, nothing, no offense to Eric, but then
Boston did go down.
But then
later.
Do you know what I mean? But going into the season, Boston wasn't in my top 5, not even on my top 10. I don't even know if they were in my top 10 radar, and they go and have the best season in NHL history.
Well, usually Boston's out of my top 50. Usually I put them at like 57, 58. I understand how many teams are in the NHL, but I still put them there.
Look at it from this standpoint. The teams that you have in there, Florida was one of the worst teams in the NHL the first half of the season. Now look where they're at. But if you go to other leagues like the NBA, there's teams in the NBA that I will tell you, in the next 5 years, they will never win a championship. Maybe in the next 10 years, maybe ever. It's just the parity in the NHL, and like Bettman or Daly and the guys the parity that they bring and the control that they have over it is pretty impressive in today's climate. When you see the amount of dollars and ownership and teams being stacked, it's nice to see that the NHL has this parity, and you get to, if you're a fan of a team, you have a chance.
Fair enough. Seems good. All right, let's give Logan the last word here, and then we'll let the guys get some rest and get excited. And we'll definitely get some updates from these guys from the Montreal show. And hopefully now that we've got a little bit of a plan, I'll make some plans and I'll chat with Brad, and then we'll start coming up with some ideas. But we'll definitely get some thoughts and updates from the Montreal show, so that'll be fun, and we'll include that in the next show, so that'll be good. All right, last question here from Logan. Bedard's Young Gun selling for under 500 or over 500 on release day? That kind of plays into my question, and I want two pieces to this answer. Pick your over or under. And the second question that I have for you is, does the fact he ends up in Chicago affect that positively or negatively? So that's kind of leading to the question I had before. Is it going to help? Is it going to make it even more so? Or would it be around the same spot before? So over under 500 first. And then the second is, does Chicago add or take away anything from that? Luke?
I say over, and I don't think Chicago changes it.
Okay, so the Chicago thing is a net neutral, doesn't really affect it, but you're saying over 500 on initial release. Okay, so Brad?
Over, and I think going to Chicago does affect it positively.
Okay, sounds good.
Going to Chicago over Anaheim, Columbus.
Yeah, but that's basically what I'm implying.
Yeah.
Just over some of the other options that would have been right there in that top 3. That's why I say, I'll be curious to see what those pre-sales look like. Now, of course, what we need to know, the most important question, the one we've talked about for weeks. All right, Series 1 or Series 2? Because if it's not in Series 1, then, we're going to be waiting. Then we'll be into the season, and that's going to impact it, because that's going to change the answer to our question. We're going to have to reevaluate depending on how he comes out of the block.
So he's 100% not in Series 1. He's in Series 2. Okay. That's confirmed.
Okay.
So there could be some
one...
chase. We don't know.
Yeah.
I hope Upper Deck puts some sort of Bedard chase card in there. They do something, and I'm sure they will.
Well, they got to put something in my Mark case. I mean, but regardless, we'll definitely have to see how that plays out, and it'll be a lot of fun. Okay, so question though, if he goes in Series 2, so then what's the first set that he actually has a card in?
MVP.
Not counting any chase to refer it, because obviously there's sets that are going to be coming out at the beginning of the season. So something then would beat it. Probably MVP, right? Probably have to be MVP. Usually it's one of those ones that ends up there. It's usually that low end brand like an MVP that gets a card early on with a lot of these guys.
Yeah, it could be, and that's going to be even drive some more hype. Yeah,
That's what I'm saying. Like I'm saying these are all considerations. Usually there's a set something like that, like an MVP, that will get some of these guys out of the block. Because I remember during the Robertson year and everything, even though Robertson didn't have the hype, I remember he was an MVP. You could pull the cards and stuff there, and they put stuff like that on there. So if it's not flagship, something else is going to get the first Bedard card, and whatever that is, I don't know yet.
yeah, and it's nice too. Like I know at AMG, I talked to the team this week about it, and what AMG is going to do is you buy whatever you buy at issue price of Series 1, you will get the same quantity at issue price of Series 2, which makes it nice for hobby shops. They have that little bit of control now. So we already put in pre-orders for what we have in Series 1. So now it makes it a little more an even playing field. If you want to get, everyone wants Bedard Series 1, or well, he's going to be in Series 2. So everyone wants to buy that product. So now whatever you buy as Series 1, you will get an issue price of Series 2. So that makes it nice for hobby shops.
All right. Sounds good. Sounds good. So thank you all for hanging out. By the way, I was disappointed. Most of you didn't even pick a Stanley Cup winner. Like, what the heck, guys? Like, what the heck? I'll just go with Dallas just because, that's my homer pick. That'll be my homer pick. I'm still crossing my fingers and hoping for Dallas. But we'll see. And we'll definitely, like I said, we'll come up with some stuff as we get into it. We'll share some stuff that happens coming out of the Montreal show, so that'll be fun. And then we'll get into a little bit of a schedule and rhythm, and then we'll definitely have some stuff for you guys as more exciting announcements come down the pipeline. So that'll be enjoyable. Otherwise, a pleasure hanging out with you as always on this Thursday. Great to be back here. And then we'll be back next Thursday, same bat time, same bat channel. We'll see where in the world Luke is at that time as he hops on the Learjet and heads in his jet-setting ways.
I'll be back in Edmonton in my sweet old bed.
There you go. Fair enough. All right, folks, on your way out, if you can hit the like button, that always helps out the show. Really do appreciate that as well. If you haven't already, if you're joining us for the first time, hopefully you enjoyed yourself, and we are here for that. The contacts are all there at the bottom that have been scrolling throughout the show. And if you could hit the like button for this, subscribe to the channel. We got over the 300 subscribers, so thank you for that. We're actually at 316 subscribers, so it's bringing the wrestling back into it. So Austin 316, that's our subscriber count. Beautiful. Beautiful people. Yes, that is our subscriber count right now. But we could use some more. That's always helpful. Let's get to 400 now. We got the 300. Let's get to 400. Let's keep chugging along at this one. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of the hockey playoffs for those of you who are watching the games. Should be a lot of fun down the stretch here. I think this one's going to be really interesting, and I'm looking forward to where it takes us. Otherwise, we'll catch you in the next one. Have a good night.